They called for backup. Then the true monsters of the galaxy emerged. HFY Sci-fi Story, the twin sons of Rimworld. Outpost Gamma. 9 hung low over the dusty horizon, painting the sky in streaks of orange and violet. The air shimmered with heat, carrying the metallic tang of the colony's machinery and the faint scent of burning fuel. Ryder Kane adjusted the brim of his wide hat and squinted at the settlement below. Smoke curled from the edges of broken buildings, and in the distance, the soft whine of malfunctioning generators mixed with the occasional cry of panic-stricken settlers. He dismounted his hoverbike, the plasma engine settling with a quiet hum. The dust kicked up by his arrival settled around him like a thin, restless blanket. Ryder's cybernetic arm glinted in the sunlight, its metal joints precise and smooth, a constant reminder that this was a man who had survived far too many battles to be shaken easily. Beside him, Lila Tran, his partner and the colony's former engineer, adjusted her utility belt, eyes scanning the settlement with a mix of determination and concern. "This isn't going to be pretty," she said softly, voice tight as she took in the damage. Ryder nodded. "Never is when humans call for backup. But we do what we can. That's the code." The settlers were scattered, hiding in partially destroyed buildings and behind overturned carts. Children clung to their parents, and farmers who had spent their lives tending plasma crops and genetically enhanced livestock stared at Ryder with wide eyes full of fear and hope. The colony's distress signal had been desperate, repeated, and urgent. Ryder had answered immediately, knowing that what awaited them was more dangerous than a simple raider attack. Ryder walked through the streets, his boots crunching against the glassy fragments of shattered solar panels. The first thing he noticed was the lack of bodies. There were signs of a struggle. Clawed walls, scorched equipment, and a few overturned vehicles, but no raiders, no attackers. It was as if the people had been left alive to tremble under some invisible threat. One of the settlers, a wiry man named Jarek, approached, trembling. "They came at night," he said. "Faster than anything we've ever seen. Big, with claws that could tear through steel like paper." This his voice caught. "And they took the livestock." Lila frowned. "You mean the genetically enhanced cattle?" she asked. Jarek nodded grimly. "Every last one. Tucker, not a single trace. And when we tried to defend ourselves, they vanished before we could even raise a shot." Ryder rubbed his chin. "These weren't raiders," he said. "Nothing human could move like that. And they didn't leave the usual tracks. No tire marks, no footprints, just shadows." He looked toward the canyon that ran behind the colony, jagged cliffs cutting into the horizon. The wind carried strange, almost unearthly whispers from that direction, faint but deliberate. Ryder's gut tightened. He had faced dangerous creatures before, from plasma snakes to asteroid wolves, but whatever had attacked this colony was something else entirely. "Backup stays away," Ryder muttered. "We're on our own for now." "And if they come back?" His voice trailed off, leaving the unspoken threat hanging in the dusty air. Lila pulled out a small handheld scanner, its blue lights flickering over the damaged buildings. "I can rig the old mining drones," she said. "Turn them into scouts. They can track movement, maybe even fight if we need them to." Ryder's lips curved into a small, grim smile. "Good thinking. Humans might not be the fastest or the strongest in the galaxy, but we're smart, and we're stubborn. That's what makes us dangerous." The two of them set to work immediately. Ryder helped the settlers secure barricades, turning mining carts and scrap metal into makeshift fortifications. Lila crawled into the control room of the colony's main hub, tapping into dormant drones and rerouting power to their sensors. Even under threat, the humans adapted quickly, demonstrating a resilience that Ryder always admired. As night fell, the settlement grew quiet, the kind of quiet that made the shadows seem alive. The twin moons rose, casting silvery light across the canyon and turning the dust into sparkling clouds. The settlers huddled inside, whispering prayers or comforting one another, unaware of the movement creeping just beyond the perimeter. Ryder climbed to the top of a ridge overlooking the colony. His cybernetic eye adjusted to the darkness, scanning the horizon. At first there was nothing, just the outline of jagged cliffs and the shimmering plains of crystal sand that stretched toward the canyon. Then a flicker of motion caught his attention. Small at first, almost like a mirage, then larger, deliberate. The creatures weren't human. They weren't raiders. They were predators, tall, multi-limbed with reflective carapaces that made them almost invisible under the moonlight. Ryder's hand instinctively went to the plasma revolver at his side. "Stay calm," he muttered to himself. though his heart beat faster than he would admit. Watch them. Learn them. From below, Lila's voice crackled over the communicator. Ryder, I've activated the drones. Sensors are online. Motion readings just spiked near the canyon ridge. Something big is coming. Ryder gritted his teeth. Then we'll be ready. Humans don't back down. The first creature leapt from the ridge, landing with a heavy thud that shook the ground beneath Ryder's boots. Its limbs moved in unnatural fluid patterns, and its eyes glowed faintly, reflecting the twin moons. It sniffed the air, then disappeared into the shadows as quickly as it had appeared. Ryder didn't flinch. He signaled to the settlers, guiding them into defensive positions. Listen to me, he called. These aren't raiders. They're predators. They'll test us, but we have something they don't. Human ingenuity. Watch, learn, and fight smart. That's the only way we survive. The night stretched long and tense. The creatures circled the colony, testing, observing, but never fully attacking. Ryder and Lila used every resource they had. Laser snares, motion sensors, the mining drones acting as silent scouts. Each small encounter revealed more about the creature's patterns and weaknesses. By dawn, the settlers were exhausted but alive. Ryder surveyed the colony, taking stock of the damage. Buildings would need repair, supplies were low, and fear still lingered in the air, but the humans had survived the first night. For Ryder, that was a small victory, but an important one. These things aren't just monsters, he said quietly, speaking more to himself than anyone else. They're smart, coordinated, and they've never met humans like us before. That's our advantage. They may be big, fast, and deadly, but we don't give up. We adapt. We fight back, and we survive. Lila joined him on the ridge, her eyes scanning the fading shadows. So what now? She asked. Ryder looked toward the distant canyons where the predators had vanished. Now, he said, we make a plan. Tonight, we learn more. Tomorrow, we strike back. Humans don't wait for rescue. We become the backup the galaxy needs, because nobody else will fight like us. The twin suns rose higher, casting light over the broken settlement. Dust swirled in the warm morning breeze. The predators were out there, waiting, testing, but Ryder Kane and the people of Outpost Gamma... 9 were ready. The frontier was dangerous, chaotic, and wild, but as long as humans drew breath, they would never be easy prey. And so, the first night of the battle ended, but the real fight had only just begun. The monsters were coming, and humans would be ready. The sun dipped below the jagged cliffs of Rimworld Outpost Gamma. 9, casting long shadows across the colony. Dust swirled in the air like smoke, reflecting neon lights from the damaged buildings, and the faint glow of the twin moons rising behind the canyon. Ryder Kane sat on the ridge, his legs dangling over the edge, scanning the horizon with his cybernetic eye. Ryder, Lila's voice crackled over the communicator. Motion readings are spiking again near the eastern crystal fields. Something's moving out there. Big. Ryder nodded, adjusting the grip on his plasma revolver. I see it, he said, his voice low. Get the drones ready. We'll need eyes in every direction. Below them, settlers moved cautiously, gathering supplies and setting up makeshift barricades. Though fear lingered in their eyes, there was determination too, a stubborn courage that Ryder recognized immediately. Humans weren't the strongest or the fastest creatures in the galaxy, but they were clever, adaptable, and relentless. That was their advantage. The first creatures appeared as darkness against the glowing crystals, multi-limbed forms that moved with unnerving speed. Their reflective carapaces made them almost invisible when they stayed still, but any movement revealed their sharp outlines and glowing eyes. One of the settlers, a young woman named Mara, gasped as a creature's shadow leapt across a ruined storage shed. Stay calm, Ryder called. Watch them. Don't run. Don't panic. Learn. The settlers obeyed, gripping salvaged plasma rifles and makeshift spears. Ryder had spent the day teaching them basic tactics, using cover, moving as a team, and relying on their brains as much as their weapons. The monsters, he knew, had strength and speed, but intelligence was a different matter. Human creativity and ingenuity could match even the deadliest predator if used correctly. Lila activated the mining drones, their small lights blinking as they hummed to life. The drones lifted off, hovering silently above the crystal fields. They scanned the terrain, their sensors picking up faint heat signatures and movement patterns invisible to the naked eye. Ryder watched the readings, noting how the creatures approached. careful, methodical, circling the colony like predators testing the boundaries of a trap. "They're not raiders," Ryder said, voice firm. "They're hunters, and we're their prey. But we'll turn the tables. Humans always do." The creatures struck first when the night was at its darkest. One launched itself from the crystal ridges, landing with a heavy thud that sent dust and small rocks tumbling down the canyon walls. It moved faster than any human eye could track, claws scraping against metal and stone. A settler screamed, firing a plasma shot that barely grazed the creature before it vanished into the shadows. Ryder sprinted forward, his boots kicking up neon-dusted sand. He swung a makeshift energy net, catching the creature across its front limbs. It struggled violently, but the net's field held it in place. Using the moment, Ryder fired a precise shot from his plasma revolver, and the creature shrieked, a sound like metal scraping bone, before retreating into the darkness. "That's one down," Ryder muttered, wiping sweat from his brow. "But there are more. Always more." Lila's voice came over the communicator again, calm but tense. "They're coordinating. I can see it. The drones are picking up signals, some kind of communication between them."
"They're intelligent, Ryder."
"Not just animals," Ryder nodded, lips pressed together. "Then we'll be smarter. Humans are adaptable. We'll learn faster than they can change. Set the traps. Position the settlers. Tonight, we fight back." The settlers moved like a single organism under Ryder's guidance. Barricades were strengthened with salvaged metal sheets and old mining equipment. Laser snares were set along likely approach paths. Scouts, armed with plasma pistols and knives, patrolled the perimeter. Every move was calculated, every action deliberate. Ryder had no illusions. They were still outmatched physically, but their brains, courage, and unity were powerful weapons. As the night deepened, the creatures began to test the traps. One leapt toward a barricade, only to be slowed by the laser snare. Another tried to flank the colony, but was detected by the drones. Ryder and Lila coordinated counterattacks, firing plasma shots, luring the creatures into controlled zones, and retreating when necessary. The first real confrontation came near the reactor hub. A creature had broken through one of the side barriers, lunging toward a group of settlers hiding behind crates. Ryder didn't hesitate. He fired a shot to distract it, then grabbed a nearby plasma rope and swung it, tangling the creature in the net. The settlers rushed forward, striking with whatever weapons they could find. The creature howled in frustration, thrashing against the energy field, but the combined human effort held it in place. Ryder's cybernetic arm extended, gripping the creature's limbs and immobilizing it long enough for Lila to fire a precise plasma blast. The creature collapsed, retreating into the shadows with a faint hiss. "Good work," Ryder called. "Keep moving, keep learning." "They're smart, but we're smarter." The settlers cheered quietly, but Ryder knew the fight was far from over. The creatures were testing them, studying their tactics, adjusting to every trap and maneuver. This was no ordinary attack. It was a war of wits as much as strength. Hours passed. The creatures struck repeatedly, each encounter more calculated than the last. Ryder noticed patterns. They avoided areas with drone coverage, they communicated through clicks and vibrations, and they seemed hesitant near fire or bright lights. Humans might not have claws or scales, but they had tools, and they could adapt quickly. Lila suggested a daring plan. "We use the drones to lead them into the crystal fields," she said. "The crystals interfere with their sensors. We can trap them there." Ryder considered it. It was risky. If they misjudged the creature's behavior, the colony could be overrun. But it was the best chance they had. "Do it," he said. "Humans are nothing if not brave and stubborn. Let's turn the hunters into the hunted." The plan unfolded carefully. Drones were sent ahead, creating false heat signatures and movement. Settlers fired plasma shots to guide the creatures toward the crystal fields where they became disoriented. One by one, the creatures stumbled into traps. Energy nets, plasma snares, and hidden barricades. Ryder and Lila moved among the settlers, coordinating, giving orders, and striking when necessary. By midnight, several creatures had been neutralized or forced back into the crystal fields. The remaining attackers hesitated, unsure of the humans' strength. Ryder watched from the ridge, heart pounding, proud of the colony's courage. "They're learning," Lila said softly. "They're cautious now. They didn't expect humans to fight like this." "Exactly," Ryder replied. "We're unpredictable. That's why humans survive. We're clever, we adapt, and we never give up. They'll come back, but next time they'll think twice." The colony settled into tense vigilance, repairing barricades and tending to the wounded. The settlers were exhausted, faces streaked with sweat and dust, but there was a spark in their eyes, a spark that Ryder recognized. Fear could not extinguish courage, and humans were nothing if not resilient. As dawn approached, the crystal field shimmered under the light of the twin moons, and the canyon walls glowed faintly with neon reflections. The creatures had retreated for now, but Ryder knew they were not gone. They were intelligent, patient, and dangerous, but humans had a secret weapon no other species possessed: creativity, courage, and unbreakable determination. Ryder turned to Lila. "We'll rest, but tonight we push further. We fight smarter, harder. Humans never give up, and we're about to show them exactly why." Lila nodded, her eyes scanning the horizon. "And if they come back?" Ryder smiled grimly. "Then we're ready. Always ready. Because humans aren't just survivors. We're the backup the galaxy needs." The settlers rallied, tired but unbroken, ready to defend their home again. Ryder looked out across the canyon, watching for movement in the shadows. Somewhere out there, the monsters waited. But Ryder Kane and the people of Outpost Gamma, 9 were alive, and they would fight. They would adapt. They would survive. And as the neon lights flickered across the colony, the first signs of dawn painting the sky, one truth became clear. The frontier was dangerous, but humans were fiercer. The monsters might test them, but nothing, not speed, strength, or fear, could match the ingenuity and stubborn courage of humanity. Tonight, they had survived. Tomorrow, the battle would continue. But Ryder Kane and the settlers of Gamma 9 would not back down. They were humans. And humans always fought. The night sky over Outpost Gamma. 9 was deep and endless, studded with stars that seemed so far away they could be mistaken for distant fires. But on the ground, the colony was alive with tension. Fires from damaged buildings cast flickering shadows, mixing with neon lights from power conduits and emergency lamps. Ryder Kane moved along the perimeter, checking barricades and scanning the horizon with his cybernetic eye.
"They're out there," he muttered.
Waiting. Watching. Lila Tran crouched beside him, her fingers dancing over the controls of the mining drones. "I've got multiple heat signatures," she said quietly. "They're coordinating now. We're not just dealing with hunters. They're organized. Almost intelligent."
Ryder didn't flinch. Intelligence or not, humans adapt faster. That's the advantage.
Tonight, we hit back harder. The creatures had learned from the previous encounters. They avoided traps, approached from unexpected angles, and communicated with clicks and vibrations that Ryder couldn't yet decode. But humans had a weapon no other species could match: ingenuity. Ryder studied the colony, noting choke points, high ground, and weak spots. He turned to the settlers, a group of weary but determined men and women. "Tonight," he said, voice strong, "we fight together. Not as individuals, not as scared farmers, but as humans. They think they can hunt us. They're wrong. We'll show them what humans are capable of." The settlers nodded, gripping plasma rifles, improvised spears, and energy nets. Fear was still there, but it was paired with resolve. Ryder could see the spark in their eyes, the same spark he had seen in humans across countless worlds. As the twin moons rose higher, the first wave struck. Shadows moved in the distance, leaping across broken walls and neon-lit rubble. One creature landed near the northern barricade, claws scraping metal. Its reflective carapace shimmered under the neon light. A settler fired a plasma shot, barely grazing the creature, and it hissed before retreating. Ryder raised his hand. "Hold! Wait for the signal." He activated a set of drones, sending them ahead as decoys. The creatures, curious and aggressive, followed. Ryder signaled the settlers, who triggered hidden energy snares and plasma traps. One by one, the creatures stumbled, their limbs tangled in nets or slowed by electrified barriers. "It's working!" Lila shouted over the communicator. "They're falling into the traps!" But the creatures adapted quickly. One massive predator leapt over a barricade and charged a group of settlers. Ryder ran, plasma revolver drawn, firing precise shots while guiding the humans to safer positions, his cybernetic arm extended, blocking the creature's claws and twisting to deflect its momentum. Sparks flew, dust and debris kicked into the air, and the settlers shouted, following Ryder's orders. The colony was a battlefield, glowing neon against the dark canyon. Every corner held danger, every shadow a potential attack, but the humans fought back with creativity. Lila directed drones to create holographic decoys, confusing the creatures. Settlers set up makeshift flamethrowers, heating the crystal sand to create blinding bursts of light. Ryder gritted his teeth. "Good. Keep it up. Every move counts. The creature's attacks grew more coordinated. One leapt from the eastern ridge while another came from the western canyon. Ryder realized they weren't just hunting. They were testing human defenses, looking for weak spots. He called the settlers together. We split into teams. 2 go left, 2 go right. Used the drones to guide them into the crystal fields. That's where we have the advantage. Remember, humans survive because we think, we adapt, we fight together. The plan was risky. The crystal fields could disorient the creatures, but if they miscalculated, someone could be killed. Ryder and Lila led the first group, moving quietly through the shadows. The creatures were faster than ever, almost ghost-like in their speed, but Ryder noticed patterns, the way they approached, how they reacted to light and movement. He whispered instructions to the settlers, guiding them with hand signals and quiet commands. The first creature spotted the decoy drones and lunged. It fell into a net trap, thrashing violently but held fast. Another creature followed, stepping on a plasma sensor, triggering an electric shock that made it screech in pain and retreat. "Keep pushing!" Ryder shouted, his revolver flashing in the moonlight. "This is our home. This is our fight." The creatures began to panic as more of them fell into traps. Ryder's team used the chaos to their advantage, funneling the remaining predators toward the center of the crystal fields. The terrain worked in the humans' favor. Sharp crystal ridges slowed their movements, reflections confused their senses, and the drone's sensors kept track of their every step. Lila directed a precise strike. "Now!" she yelled. Settlers fired plasma bursts, creating bright flashes that blinded the creatures temporarily. Ryder swung his plasma lasso, ensnaring a massive predator and guiding it toward the traps. For a moment it seemed the humans had the upper hand. But then Ryder noticed movement behind the main group, a shadow larger than the rest, moving with intelligence and purpose. It wasn't just a creature, it was something different, a leader, coordinating the others. Ryder's heart pounded. "This one's smart," he muttered. "We need to focus." The leader lunged at the settlers, faster than anyone could react. Ryder intercepted, using his cybernetic arm to block its claws. Sparks flew, metal screeched, and the settlers fired on it from multiple angles. The creature was strong, relentless, but Ryder's team worked as one. They dodged, trapped, and outsmarted it. Lila activated a special drone, equipped with a pulse emitter that disoriented the leader creature. It shrieked in frustration, thrashing wildly before Ryder and the settlers finally guided it into a reinforced trap. The cage's energy field held it, immobilized. The rest of the creatures, seeing their leader trapped, retreated. They moved silently back into the crystal fields, disappearing into the shadows. For now, the colony was safe. Ryder lowered his revolver, breathing heavily. "We did it, for now," he said. The settlers cheered quietly, exhaustion written on every face, but relief clear in their eyes. Lila joined him on the ridge, wiping sweat from her brow. "They were stronger tonight," she said, "smarter too." "This isn't over," Ryder nodded, looking at the distant shadows in the canyon. "I know, but humans survived. That's what counts." "They'll be back, but we'll be ready. Humans always adapt, always fight back, and we never give up." He walked among the settlers, checking injuries and repairing barricades. The colonists were tired, scared, and bruised, but they had fought bravely. Ryder felt pride swell in his chest. Humanity was fragile, yes, but in moments like this, fragile became unstoppable. The first hints of dawn appeared, painting the crystal fields with pale light. Ryder scanned the horizon, knowing the creatures had gone for now, but not far. He spoke to the settlers. "Rest if you can. Tomorrow we learn more, we prepare. They'll test us again. But humans are clever, and humans survive. Remember that." The settlers nodded, knowing Ryder's words were true. Fear might be constant, but courage, intelligence, and unity made them stronger than any predator. Ryder and Lila watched the colony, quiet for the first time in hours, the neon lights flickering, the fires slowly dying down, and the crystal fields reflecting the rising twin suns. Ryder's thoughts turned outward, beyond the colony. Somewhere in the galaxy, other humans might be facing impossible threats, but humanity had a quality no other species possessed, the ability to adapt, to create, to fight back, even when outmatched. He spoke softly to Lila. "They thought they could scare us. They thought humans were easy prey. They were wrong." Lila smiled, tired but determined. "They'll remember that next time." Ryder turned back toward the colony. The battle was far from over, but humans had survived a night that should have destroyed them. Every wound, every trap, every burst of plasma fire had proven one thing. Humans were not just survivors, they were a force the galaxy could not ignore. And somewhere in the dark reaches of space, Ryder knew. The monsters were planning their return, but humans would be ready. Always ready, because humans were clever, brave, and relentless. Outpost Gamma 9 was scarred, the settlers exhausted, and the monsters temporarily driven away, but humanity had won tonight. They had survived the blood on the stars, and Ryder Kane, Lila Tran, and the settlers knew the frontier was dangerous, wild, and unpredictable, but it had nothing humans couldn't face. The night ended, but the war had just begun. The first rays of the twin suns stretched over the jagged ridges of Outpost Gamma 9, casting long, warm shadows across the dust-swept settlement. Fires from the previous night's battle had dwindled to smoldering embers, and the neon lights of damaged power conduits flickered faintly in the morning haze. The air smelled of scorched metal and dust, but also carried the faint scent of hope. Ryder Kane adjusted his wide hat and surveyed the colony from the ridge. The settlement's buildings were scarred, barricades still stood, and the settlers were weary but alive. Human ingenuity, courage, and determination had held against the alien predators. Yet Ryder knew the fight wasn't entirely over. Somewhere in the crystal fields and shadowed canyons, the creatures were regrouping. They were intelligent. They were patient, and they would return. Lila Tran appeared at his side, wiping sweat and dust from her brow. "They didn't expect humans to fight like this," she said quietly. "They underestimated us. That's why we survived." Ryder nodded, looking down at the settlers emerging from their shelters. Children peered cautiously from behind barricades, parents checking supplies, and the injured were being tended to with whatever medical resources were available. "Humans always adapt," Ryder said. "We survive. That's what makes us dangerous." The settlers gathered in the central square, tired but resilient. Ryder stepped forward. "Listen up!" His voice rang loud over the quiet morning. "Last night you all proved something important. You survived. You fought. You protected your home. But there's more work to do. These creatures are still out there, watching, learning. And if we're not ready, they'll come back." A murmur of agreement rippled through the crowd. Ryder continued, "But we are ready. You've learned to work together, to adapt, to use your brains as well as your hands. You are humans, and humans survive where others fail." The settlers cheered softly, their confidence growing. Ryder's words were more than encouragement. They were a reminder that survival was not about strength alone. It was about creativity, unity, and determination. Ryder and Lila moved among the settlers, repairing barricades and checking on supplies. The colony's drones had survived the night and were fully operational, ready to scout and detect any future movement in the canyon. Ryder and Lila coordinated with the settlers to reinforce the perimeter, ensuring that the colony could hold even if the predators returned. As the morning progressed, Ryder rode along the ridge on his hoverbike, scanning the horizon for any sign of the creatures. The crystal fields glittered under the sunlight, and for a moment the landscape looked peaceful. But Ryder knew better. The monsters were cunning. They were survivors too, and they would not give up easily. Still, humans had an advantage that no predator could match: the ability to think ahead. Ryder had already begun planning strategies for future encounters. Hidden traps, decoy drones, plasma snares, and patrol rotations, all designed to keep the colony safe while minimizing casualties. Humans might not be the strongest, but they could be the smartest, and Ryder knew that would be the difference between survival and annihilation. Lila approached, holding a small data pad. "Ryder, we should coordinate with the Galactic Patrol. They'll arrive soon, but we can share what we've learned. Our tactics, the creatures' behavior, everything. They'll be better prepared next time." Ryder nodded, eyes narrowing as he looked toward the distant horizon. "We've survived 2 nights so far," he said. "The creatures may be back, but if humans keep learning, we'll always have the advantage. We adapt faster than anything else in this galaxy. That's who we are." The settlers worked tirelessly through the day, repairing buildings, clearing debris, and organizing food and water supplies. Ryder and Lila helped where they could, teaching defensive strategies and training the settlers in basic combat skills. By the afternoon, the colony looked more like a fortified settlement than a damaged outpost. As the twin suns began to set, Ryder called the settlers together again. "Tonight we ride," he said. A ripple of excitement and curiosity went through the group.
We're not just defending. We're showing these predators that humans don't hide.
Humans fight, humans lead. We're taking the frontier back. Ryder mounted his hoverbike, Lila following closely on hers, and the settlers formed small riding squads behind them. The neon lights of the colony glinted against the dust, and the crystal fields shimmered with reflected sunlight as they rode toward the canyon. The first predators appeared at the edge of the crystal fields, their reflective carapaces glinting in the dim light, but Ryder's plan worked perfectly. The settlers, guided by drones and human ingenuity, used the terrain to their advantage. The crystal ridges slowed the predators, forcing them into narrow paths where traps and barricades awaited. Ryder led the charge, firing his plasma revolver with precision. Lila used her drones to create holographic decoys, confusing the predators and drawing them into the settlers' lines. Plasma snares and energy nets immobilized several of the creatures at once, and the settlers fought with courage and determination, striking only when necessary to defend themselves. The predators were intelligent, yes, but humans were unpredictable. Every movement was calculated yet flexible. Every strategy could change in an instant. The creatures struck with speed and coordination, but Ryder and the settlers countered with ingenuity, teamwork, and relentless determination. Hours passed in a tense battle of wits and reflexes. The settlers learned to anticipate the creatures' moves, to use the environment, and to support one another. Ryder noticed something remarkable. Despite exhaustion, fear, and the danger surrounding them, the humans were growing stronger. They were becoming more than survivors. They were warriors, thinkers, and leaders. Finally, the predators retreated once more, driven back into the shadows of the canyon. Ryder and Leela guided the settlers back to the colony, where they could regroup, repair, and plan for the future. The night was quiet, but the humans had proved their dominance through intelligence, courage, and unity. Ryder stood atop the ridge, looking at the colony below. The fires had been extinguished, barricades repaired, and the settlers were safe for now. He turned to Lila. "They'll come back," he said softly. "But humans are ready. Humans survive, and humans fight smarter than anything else in this galaxy." Lila smiled, tired but proud. "We've proven that already. And the Galactic Patrol will arrive soon. They'll see the difference humans can make when they fight together." Ryder nodded. "Humans aren't the strongest, or not the fastest. But we're clever, resourceful, and brave. And that's why we win. That's why we survive." The settlers gathered around the central square, celebrating quietly. They had fought a battle that should have destroyed them, and yet they were still standing. Children played cautiously near repaired buildings, parents smiled, and the wounded were being cared for with renewed determination. Ryder knew the frontier was harsh and dangerous, but he also knew that humanity had a unique quality that no predator could match. As the twin suns rose higher, Ryder and Lila prepared to ride beyond the colony, scouting the outer canyons and crystal fields. They had fought, survived, and learned, and they would continue to do so, for the frontier was not forgiving, and the galaxy held challenges that tested courage, intelligence, and unity. But humans were different. Humans adapted. Humans persevered. Humans survived. Ryder mounted his hoverbike, Lila following close behind. The settlers waved, knowing that the humans leading them were more than just protectors. They were symbols of human ingenuity and courage. As they rode toward the horizon, the crystal fields shimmered under the morning sun, the canyon walls glowing with neon reflections, and the distant stars still twinkled in the deepening sky. Ryder's mind wandered to the other colonies in the galaxy, other humans facing dangers far worse than creatures in crystal fields. He smiled to himself. Humans might be outnumbered, outmatched, and underestimated, but they always found a way to survive, to fight back, and to prevail. And somewhere in the far reaches of the galaxy, Ryder knew, humans would continue to be the backup no one else could provide. The ride back to the colony was quiet, peaceful, and triumphant. The settlers had survived, the predators had been driven back, and humans had proven what they were capable of. The frontier was dangerous, wild, and unpredictable, but humans would face it, together, with courage, ingenuity, and heart. Ryder glanced at Lila. "We did it," he said simply. She nodded. "Yes, and we'll do it again if we have to, 'cause humans always survive." The sun rose fully over Outpost Gamma 9, painting the canyon with gold and orange light. The colony was safe, the settlers were alive, and humanity had proven once more that courage, intelligence, and determination were stronger than fear, monsters, or the unknown. The frontier was still dangerous, but humans had survived the long night, learned from it, and would continue to thrive. Ryder Kane and Lila Tran, along with the settlers of Gamma 9, had proven that humans were more than survivors. They were a force the galaxy could never ignore. and as they rode home, dust and neon swirling around them, one truth shone brighter than any twin sun. Humans endure. Humans adapt. Humans prevail.